waiting. So the attendees will start to, pour in slowly. We had like 100 and something, almost 120 confirmations yesterday. So let's see how many of them join today. So I hope a very good amount.
It's populating really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is exciting that we're able to do like an interesting, panel of the future of work and to learn, a little bit more about what does that mean? I mean, this is where the Washington Center is going. So we're really, really excited about it. I think I'll just give it another minute or so. So we allow, all the people to join. And if for any reason you see a little image here that looks like Menchu, my boss, don't get scared. It's her account. I don't have those glasses, so I'll try to look as fashionable as her, but I don't think I look like that right now. So I promise I'll do my best for the next seminar. So just give it another couple of seconds to people to come in. So welcome everybody to this international panel at the Washington Center. We're very happy to have you here. I see, in these names, a lot of people that, some names that look familiar, some others that, previous former students of the Washington Center, some collaborators, some partners. So I'm very happy to have you all here. That's amazing. And I'm sure that you will enjoy this webinar. So I think we can start. I mean, it's 11:02, and I know that all the panelists have a very tight schedule. So I'm gonna hit also the interpretation service on, so Julian can jump into that. Julian, I think I put you on mute, but I think you can unmute yourself. So you can start doing the interpretation. So welcome everybody. For all of those that are here, my name is Federico Ling. I'm the Vice President for International Partnerships at the Washington Center. I'm very happy to welcome our panelists today. Kimberly Churches, President of the Washington Center, Alonso Huerta, our Director General of 𝐶IDNOVA, the Council of Science and Technology from Hidalgo, Jean-Francois Hould, the Director General of the Quebec office in Washington, D.C., Gladys Bernett, the representative of Education USA and Panama at the City of Knowledge, and our moderator, Peter Stevens, former colleague and current professor of the Washington Center seminars. So welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Welcome to our 40-something attendees in this amazing webinar. For all of those of you who would like to have the translation into Spanish, you can hit on the interpretation sign on the Zoom, and you will be hearing the presentations in Spanish. All of our speakers and panelists will do their presentations in English. And in the end, Peter will moderate the panel, and we will have some questions from the audience. So just to give you a little bit of more context, we decided to do this amazing panel about the future of work because this is exactly where we think the Washington Center and a lot of organizations are going and need to decide and think, what does that mean and how does that look like? I mean, we know that the future of work has changed a lot. As you know, the Washington Center, we are the experts on career readiness, work readiness. We do internship, we do seminars. But what does the future of work looks like, and what does that mean for everybody? So after the pandemic, a lot of things change. As you can see now, we all work from home. Some people are going to the office. I mean, what are the skills that we need? What type of abilities do we need to have and acquire? So this is what we will be discussing today. So in that context, the government of Hidalgo, 𝐶IDNOVA, represented by Alonso, and the Washington Center, we launched this amazing initiative to discuss about a bunch of issues, among others, innovation, entrepreneurship, competitiveness. So I'm very proud to say that we have been working with 𝐶IDNOVA since 2013. Back then, it was not called 𝐶IDNOVA. It was, I don't remember the name, Alonso. It was something different. 𝐶IDNOVA is probably from 5 years ago and on. But nonetheless, Alonso and myself, I mean, we've known each other since, I don't know, 2013, maybe. We did a lot of initiatives and programs in the past. I think more than 100 students have come to the Washington Center in person to do an internship program. And we have been doing hybrid seminars. So we've done amazing things virtually and in person. So this year, we're very pleased and very happy to announce that we are launching this initiative. And it's very different from what we've done in the past. This is a hybrid seminar that also will include an in-person agenda in DC to discuss, in an educational briefing mode, innovation, competitiveness, entrepreneurship, and what does that mean for Hidalgo? So the students and the participants can come back to the state and apply those skills and that knowledge, for all the needs that Hidalgo has. So this is, the context of why we decided to launch this as the first event, the future of work, because this is exactly what this initiative will be discussing, and we want to know, what our experts think, and how the Washington Center can help you to advance that. So, Alonso, I don't know, you want to say like something before we formally start the panel just for this initiative?
Oh, thank you, Federico. Good morning to everybody. I think Federico was very clear about the nature of this effort and this partnership that the government of Hidalgo and Washington Center have in this initiative. Hidalgo Initiative is an initiative that Hidalgo government launched to give a broader set of skills to the young people in order to prepare in a better way for the challenge that our work and the future represents for everybody. And we have a long-term alliance with Washington Center. And I really appreciate this effort, and especially the effort for adapt and flexibilize the scheme of work. As Federico pointed out, we have a lot of experience in different models, but I think this is an important innovation in a new era of this collaboration. And we are very glad to participate and give this opportunity of the talent in Hidalgo. The Governor Omar Fayad is very committed with the development of our state, and especially try to understand the reality that is existing and now in our world, and trying to impulse a very ambitious public policy for promote the science, technology, and innovation in Hidalgo. In the center of this model is our talent, and for that reason, I think this program and this panel is very important for us and for all the people who will be participating in this edition. I hope that this panel was very productive for all of them, and I really appreciate the participation of all panelists this day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alonso. As you said, we're very proud of this partnership with Sinova and Hidalgo, your long-term partners. I mean, I'm very proud of the students. I mean, we have seen amazing things of the students of the Washington Center and what they're doing right now in Mexico and other countries. I see them on Facebook, on Instagram, doing amazing master's degrees and getting jobs in Europe and in other places. So I'm very proud of that. I could say the same for Quebec and Panama, so don't get jealous. It's exactly the same. This is exactly the vision of the Washington Center. So, Mr. Moderator, Peter Stevens, I mean, I think it's time to start our panel, and if you want to start us off, that'll be great.
Okay, just a brief housekeeping note for our audience. We will do questions and answers and comments at the end. You can use the chat box. We will all be able to see the question that you have. You can direct it to one of our speakers individually or towards the team. So I just want to thank all of our panelists today. This discussion on human resource capital could not be more important, as we are in the middle of a massive innovation in terms of how we learn, what we need to learn, and the pipeline between experience and hopefully wisdom and the new work environment. So I'd like to turn it over now to the president of the Washington Center, who this is my first time meeting her, and I'm absolutely delighted.
Thank you, Peter, so much. And thank you, Federico and Alonso as well. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. And we're very proud of our Hidalgo partnership as well. Before joining the Washington Center, I led a large gender equity organization with research, policy, and programs focused on the US and the world towards change, and it was AAUW. And part of the reason why I decided to join the Washington Center at this time is that during the pandemic, we all have witnessed how inequities have exacerbated for essential workers and professional workers. In the US alone, from February 2020 to January 2022, male workers have regained all jobs lost due to COVID, while women net lost 1.1 million jobs. That's 63% of the jobs lost in the US. And that's data from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics as analyzed by the National Women's Law Center. So, but this globally is an issue. Those are just US statistics. These issues are compounded across the globe, and it threatens women and women of color and their families' economic security well into the future. Even for those that have gone back to work, and as more and more companies and employers are embracing a hybrid work model, many managers and human resources are dealing with the challenges of what's known as proximity bias, which is when people in positions of authority show favoritism to employees who are frankly closest to them physically, meaning those that are in the cubicle next door or the office down the hall. In a survey of 10,000 conducted by Future Forum, which is the research arm of Slack, more than 4 out of 10 executives ranked the potential inequities between remote work and in-office employees as their #1 concern. But even if that is their concern, the survey found that bosses are twice as likely to prefer working in the office at least 3 to 4 days a week, and they want their employees there too. Many of the inequities in how we work obviously existed long before the pandemic. And likewise, we've witnessed massive amounts of automation and technology disrupting jobs and industry that had been safe for decades before. In fact, the OECD estimates 1 billion jobs, that's almost 1/3 of all jobs worldwide, are going to be transformed by technology in just the next 10 years. Millions of jobs, sure, are being displaced, but really importantly, millions more are being created. And the good news is those new jobs tend to pay more and offer better career opportunities. But there's a divide. Employers are struggling to fill the jobs, and those starting their careers are having trouble accessing them. So at the Washington Center, we'll be taking those challenges and opportunities of this time to reframe our work ahead, including important programs and discussion like today's, as well as other workforce readiness programs through pathways of experiential learning. We all know competition for talent is global. It's not a US phenomenon, it's not a Mexican phenomenon, it's not an Asian phenomenon, right? We know a recent Everest digital talent study revealed 55% of employers in Latin America said finding the right talent is incredibly difficult. And we believe the keys to the future of work worldwide, and by the way, the future of work is here now, today. It's not in the future, it's happening now. But we believe the keys to that future include access. Who has it and who doesn't? Flexibility and adaptability. That's for individuals and for employers. Hybrid. Let's be honest, we're not going back full time like the Dolly Parton 9 to 5 song from yesteryear, and we're not staying remote fully either. It's about lifelong learning. All of us are students of life. All of us are learners. And that it means upskilling and reskilling to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. That also includes unlearning old behaviors. Transparency and accountability. Frankly, for today, to meet the challenges of where Generation Z is coming from, millennials, all the way to baby boomers, employers are going to need to employ best practices every day. That's around transparency, around pay and promotion practices and equity, and being honest and exhibiting integrity in all that they do. And that leads to the social contract. It's not just about employees' productivity, it's also about living their authentic lives and their well-being. This is a unique time when we are having baby boomers who largely worked in the office for the past 30 years, down to Generation Z, who've only known finishing or starting their collegiate experience in this type of Zoom Hollywood Squares environment. And all of that finally is about inclusion. It's no longer about work-life balance, it's about work-life blend. And we must ensure that we are employing this at the employer level and the employee basis. So right now, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to broaden the pool of people who have access to good jobs and careers that are going to grow exponentially. But we have to do more than just talk about it and build awareness. Given the social and economic inequities, we at the Washington Center will double down and make certain these opportunities are available to students that too often find they're right outside of their reach. And let's talk for a minute about that divide of human talent and skills. There are gaps in both regards, right? As an example of how things have changed, in the 20th century, let's just take the 1980s. Skills learned at a university or on the job held their relevance for nearly 3 decades, basically the length of your career. But according to researchers at the World Economic Forum today, skills only have a shelf life of about 5 years. And because the half-life of skills is short and just getting shorter, we're all going to need to work together, I believe, across industries and sectors to harness the ultimate public-private partnership. As Harvard Business Review recently shared, it's going to take employers, educators, government officials, professional associations, and individuals working together to address trends, analyze data, identify gaps, make stronger decisions, and support and leverage programs that learners need to thrive. So first up, as we talk with our audience today, understanding what skills the state of Hidalgo needs, understanding what skills an employer needs and requires, and that's where Citnova and the work of Alonso Huerta and colleagues will be so valuable. Ensuring students and learners have access to different pathways. It's not about a one-size-fits-all model. We know there needs to be new short-term programs, credentials, and certificates, and we at TWC know we can continue to provide value in this work. So I believe we must harness the power in helping human beings to not just survive, but thrive today and well into the future. And I look forward to hearing from each of you and working with each of you in these endeavors. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Kimberly, for those very insightful remarks. And one of the things I loved about your commentary was that I share the same research interests, the OECD, Harvard Business Review, The Economist. I'm addicted to them, and they are really great indicators and awareness creators. So again, thank you very much for your remarks. And now we're going to go over to my other long-term colleague, Gladys.
Hi, thank you so much, Kimberly, for those remarks. I'm going to go ahead and just tell me if you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So I'm Gladys Bernett. I'm currently the Education USA representative at City of Knowledge in Panama. I'm actually in Panama right now. Así que saludos a todos nuestros colegas de México y Canadá que nos ven. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we see it from Panama, this global issue, and also talk a little bit about the efforts that we're trying to do here to improve our human resource and make sure that our talent gets the skills that they need. So we need to think about this as the fourth industrial revolution, right? So we're talking about the knowledge not only information, because information we have, but how do we analyze that information and actually make it and transform it into knowledge? So we have the hard skills. I don't like talking about hard and soft skills because I feel the soft skills are actually even harder than the hard skills. It's like diplomacy. When you talk about soft diplomacy, I think it's so much more important sometimes, the soft part. But these are some of the skills that, as you said, it's not only for the future, it's now. And the pandemic has accelerated this to the point that we need more human resource to have these skills. Unfortunately, in our universities locally, we might not have those majors yet or those careers. So we need to think about an economy based on inspiration in Latin America and not so much on transpiration. So this is changing. And this slide is from before the pandemic. We knew this was happening, right? I worked at the Ministry of Science at Senacid when I met Fede years back. And we've been, I think like we've been preaching to the rest of the people, like this is now that we need to plan ahead for the human resources of the Panama Canal. We need to plan ahead for the human resources of the Ministry of Health. I feel like when the pandemic hit, I'm like, oh, I hate to say this, like we've been saying this forever, but the good thing is that we've had scholarship programs in the country that have trained these experts and we've had them back. So we had virologists for the pandemic because they were trained outside and in the US and came back. But many of the usual skills or works that we have in Latin America are just gonna disappear. I mean, they already have disappeared. I feel like there's a resistance sometimes to not change, but it's just gonna happen. So, many of the skills that we need, a second language and maybe a second and third language, never stop learning. I think that's one of the most important things that I tell our students. It's like, doesn't matter what major, what you're going to study right now, the most important thing is that you develop the ability to learn because that's the best skill that you will need. And of course, experiential learning. And that's why the Washington Center is so valuable because you provide those soft skills during your internships that are not really taught in a classroom, not here or not in the States. And it's the ability to be able to have that presentation skills and working teams and be able to present. And those are skills that our interns from Panama that have been to the Washington Center have been able to, those are skills that they've been able to gain. And it's interesting because when I see this future jobs, if you see this was quoted in 1984, and they talk about future jobs will require different skills and workers must be prepared to meet the changing need. We must teach students how to reflect on their experience, define their learning goals, and independently manage their own learning. But this was in 1984, and this is so important. We need to empower our students for their own learning. So as part of Education USA, I started on this role a week before the pandemic hit. So unless my colleagues from all the other countries, Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, Brazil, Canada, I was put in this position to represent Education USA. Our program was closed for 3 years. And I was asked if I wanted to do this. And I said, yes, wonderful, I'll do this. And then the pandemic hit a week after. So everything that we've done has been virtual. And what I tell our students all the time is, if life gives you lemons, you have to make mojitos. You have to make caipirinha, you have to make, margarita, but lemonade, no, we don't have time for lemonade already, right? So what we've been doing is, okay, we have to do this virtually, so let's do it. And the one good thing about doing this virtually is that we've been able to reach students from Chitre, from Chiriquí, from the provinces close to Costa Rica, Colombia. Like they don't have to actually travel here to City of Knowledge for our trainings. So what do we do? We help them research options. right? So in the US, there are 4,600 US universities, plus there are institutions like yours that provide education opportunities as well, and then research opportunities and training and so many different opportunities. So, so we provide them with, we've been able to get the expertise from current faculty and students that are currently in the US. And since this was virtual, we just connected them from their dorm rooms and from their classrooms. And I did this last year because we were in Panama. I don't know if you know, but we've been in a very strict lockdown. We were very hit by the pandemic, very harsh and very early, because we are a transit nation. So, so our schools just opened for the first time in 2 years last week. Our schools, our universities were virtual for 2 years. So one of my interns, I learned so much from my interns. One of my interns tells me, you know, we're on vacation. I'm like, what do you mean you're on vacation? I mean, she's in first year UTP. She's on vacation. What do you mean you're on vacation? You've been on virtual for 1 year. And she said, yeah, but we don't have any classes. So I started making calls and got a call to my good friend, Tony Tijerino from the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. He's right there in DC with you guys. And I said, don't you have a program called Code as a Second Language? He said, yeah. I'm like, we're doing it virtually. I'm like, okay. So they have an agreement with Google to train 100 Latinos. So why don't you include Panama then? So they taught us virtually from California, Mexican born in Spanish. And we had 600 participants. We created this virtual tech summer camp, taught them how to code, and taught them, we did this virtual career showcases to show them different skills and show them Panamanians are actually working in these fields like cybersecurity and hydroinformatics, data visualization with Georgia Tech, mapping with Arizona State University. And because when I tell my students, we don't talk about what do you want to major in? I ask them, what problem do you want to solve? So we had here, the University of Arizona and Panamanian students talking about how through youth mappers, they work in climate change issues and how they're working in collaborative projects. And they shared this with our students. And because we're not only focused on youth, for this camp, we actually had 2 cohorts. We had a cohort in the morning we even had high schoolers, but then in the evening, we had participants that had been laid off from their job, from Copa Airlines, so they had to do reskilling and upskilling. So they were also interested in coding and in gaining these skills. And then we had the director of the AIG, who's up here. The slide's a little small, but if you can see his face, I've already talked to him about the Washington Center. He's very young, and he used to be a scholar of ours. So I'm very proud that he's now the director of e-government in Panama. And he won a prize, and he was sharing his story of access and how, because he got a technology degree, he was able to study hard, has his entrepreneurship, and now he's a director of e-government. The pandemic hits, and thanks to the fact that we have Luis Oliva in charge, he won a prize during the pandemic by the OAS and the IDB on how we were able to use technology for e-government and help simplify many of those bureaucratic systems that we have in the government. They created platforms and apps so that you could see when you would get your aid from the government. They created vaccination records. Like when we get vaccinated here, you could do your appointment online, and then now we have a QR code that we show. I went to the theater for the first time in 2 years on Friday with my husband, and I showed my QR code for my vaccination. So, I mean, many things that we've been doing that I don't know if we would have been able to do before. But also not only innovation in technology, but also social innovation. We talk to our students about all the things that they can do on the project and the world, and and all the problems they could solve at the macro level, right? And here is where this comes in. So here we have Janelle Lefebvre. She was Peter and Fede's student. This is the second cohort from Panama for the U.S. Panama Innovation Competitive and Innovation Initiative. And she was in DC in 2017. And I like to highlight Jeanette because she was there doing her internship when she met colleagues from Thailand that were talking about an innovation of how they could take electricity back to rural areas. And this was before the pandemic. So she found out that the Senacid, the government, NSF, was providing grants for these entrepreneurial innovations, and she submitted a proposal. She won the proposal, and she was able to do this project called Iluminado el Futuro. I have to tell you this because this is a highlight that I think the Washington Center needs to highlight. She did this project, got funding by the Panamanian government because of an idea that she got during her internship in DC. And she went and was able during the pandemic to finish the project and provide lighting through recycled materials to very, very far away communities in Panama. And now Jeanette is working, this was before the pandemic, we're not wearing masks, now we are. She also won all the grants, and she was representing Panama at the COP26 this year. I'm so proud of this highlight of these students. Another aspect of Panama that I want to brag about, because not everything is perfect, but I think it's important to highlight things that we have been working in Panama before the pandemic, but then again, this just accelerated it. One was the Teleworking Law. It actually put in place in February 18, 2020, and then regulated during the pandemic when everybody was working from home, even the president. And then we had the digital Nomad visa law, which is a law, a temporary visa that allows individuals that have income, I think around $3,000, that if they have enough income, they can work and from a beach and they can get a visa. They don't have to pay income taxes. So it's a benefit, but all those things came about because of the pandemic. So I'm just gonna pass these along quick. It's just some of the initiatives that we've had also to show some of our students and again, making the best out of what we had. We have these virtual fairs where we have US universities interacting with Panamanian students. We have our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who's also a Fulbright alumni, by the way, and a strong supporter of science and technology, give our remarks last year and talk about women. It was not, it was actually by design, but we got a lot of our female alumni, our virologists and our technologists and our healthcare workers, many of who are currently studying in the US, to share their experience and inspire other girls to follow majors in STEM. So all this, without me knowing, Kimberly, that this is a passion of yours, it is also a passion of mine. And here you see Jeanette again, and there it says, ex-becaria Senacid and Washington Center internship scholar. She was in a webinar inspiring, because one thing is for me to talk, but when we have our students speak during these sessions, it just open up the minds of the future generations. So we've been doing this model. It's been very successful. Even when we started opening up, we still had 340 participants at these webinars. It's been amazing. Also bringing out these skills with different universities and just opening up their minds about different skills that they need to learn and things that they can do with technology, and also providing access to information about scholarships that are available for them for short-term studies, and also helping them apply. We help them with the TOEFL for free. They can do TOEFL, and we have a virtual English language fellow who connects from Connecticut online, and we provide them with TOEFL practices, and this is all virtual, GRE, and then they get to practice university life vocabulary, essay writing, which is so important. This was last week. This is our first hybrid event. I'm so excited. We had a representative from the University of New York in Abu Dhabi. She's actually based out of Mexico. I will introduce you guys. She was fantastic. And she showed her students how to, isn't this incredible? Let me repeat that. The representative from the University of New York in Abu Dhabi is American and lives in Mexico. She came to Panama and talked to her students about essay writing and how to fill out the common application. And it was such a successful event. We had about 40 students here from public schools, private schools, everything was in English. She connected virtually. She was here in person, and then we streamed it to the provinces and had 60 other students online. This was just not even a week ago. And we also help them with the visas. And we do this, and we work great with our consular office, and we've been starting to do some in-person virtual hybrid events here, and also prepare them to leave to the US. And with this, I'm gonna end. This is a project I'm working on right now, talking about work in the future. These are my star students that have won Math Olympiads. I've represented Panama in the Math Olympiads in London, in Russia. And I'm working right now trying to see what opportunities we can provide with that for them, because they're just so amazing. And just working to make sure that this talent doesn't get wasted, that it gets, because they have the potential to create the next invention. Luis Moles on the left is right now at MIT, and we're helping Leonardo right now to also go to a US university. So there's talent, and it inspires me. It has kept me going to see the youth wanting to study. They keep calling me and they tell me, you know what, university engineering school has been virtual. We can't learn circuits online. We have to go. So we're looking for these experiential learning opportunities and seeing in which ways we can keep not only focusing on the hard skills that they will need, but also on the soft skills that you guys can provide. So with that, that's going to be our new center. You're welcome to come here. We've been working virtually, but we're also going to have our space. We should have our furniture by the end of next month. So you're all welcome to come visit us from Canada, from Mexico, and from the US. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gladys. That's an amazing presentation and loaded with information. One quick comment, the thing I loved absolutely the most is when you say, what is the problem that you want to solve? I think that really just distills it to a very important point, because active learning, this engagement, has to be solutions-based, right? Especially when we're looking at human resource capital. I mean, that's critically important. And I do remember Janet, and I'm so happy to see how accomplished she is. Thank you very much for that brilliant presentation. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Jean-Francois, but I want to make one point first. The first ever international agreement, formal international agreement that was signed between the Washington Center and any international organization was with the government of Quebec. So I am delighted to be sitting here in beautiful Mexico City. I won't say how many years later, because I don't want to admit how bloody old I am, but that this agreement is still in force, and Fede and his team have been doing a brilliant job on managing it. So please, I want to welcome our representative from the government of Quebec.
Thank you, Peter, for the kind introduction. We were joking just before everybody got online that it was signed after the Magna Carta, so don't be afraid. So after that, you can figure pick your date. But we are very, very proud of this agreement, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it a bit later, because student mobility and how we connected people together is so important. The last few years have been a bumpy road on the school bench, as it is at the office. I think it's almost a cliche or an euphemism at the same time to say that employers, universities, organizations, students, workers have to adjust to succeed in this new environment. But some may argue that school children missed out on learning during the pandemic, and can also say that they learned a lot. Third graders are likely not better at the Zoom, PowerPoint that I am, for sure. And the next generation of workers will have learned computer literacy in a way that, I never had the chance to learn it in my life. I want to give, during my 10 minutes or so, a quick overview of how Quebec did face COVID. and my ministry as well, some perspective on the economic recovery as well. Key sectors were booming and tried to give some tips on mobility. For 2 years, Quebec's action in the fight against COVID-19 have been based on prudence and science, as it should be. Quebec has taken practical and necessary steps to stop the spread of COVID-19 as this is Switzerland involved, but it means that we went through total shutdown a couple of times. It did and does shape the way we are engaging the workforce right now. We were and are committed to safe reopening, and things are slowly going back to normal. We have to adjust, like in the international network that Quebec has at the subnational level. We have 33 offices in 18 countries. The one that I'm managing here in DC was opened in 1978. We are monitoring legislative developments and programs and policy in the US federal government. And we try to contribute to create a positive trade environment as our other US office are more focused on FDI and trade. So these 7 offices start and I was amazed at how quickly we shift to remote mode. For government was a conversation that was going on for so many years that was kind of not possible to do. But necessity create opportunities, and I think we developed a more collaborative approach in some ways. We work close with sectors, people are more collaborative. We work in a more collective way, and I think this is there to stay. Yes, we're done as the president of the Washington Center, saying maybe working at 9 to 5 and going to the office. But at the same time, the office is becoming as we're opening, a more collaborative space. And that is thrilling, I think. We figure ways to stay connected. We launched what we call the North American Rebound, which is a big campaign, make sure that we stay connected with partners. And we had good results, I will say. I'm kind of surprised for a province like Quebec. Quebec's international merchandise exports increased by 16% compared to 2020. The amount $100 billion right now. In fact, it fuels more than 12,000 Quebec's companies doing business in the United States and create more than, I would say, 255,000 American jobs. So we're looking forward to see each other again right now and to re-engage in many ways. In fact, the economic recovery is going pretty well in Quebec. Things are looking good, and we have a solid base to do so and look at the future of workforce. With the GDP growth of more than 6% in 2021, Quebec is expecting to have post-pandemic recovery more powerful than the US, European Union, and its Canadian peers. And why? And I think this is important for the way we look at the future of work. There's 4 pillars, I think, that shape the Quebec economic recovery that will shape also the future of work. First one is the economic diversity and the good family policy. There is no one economic sector in Quebec with the outsized economic impact of Ontario auto industry and Alberta Reliance Energy. Instead, Quebec relies in roughly equal measures on agriculture, manufacturing, biotech, transportation, education services, healthcare, science, multimedia, name it. During the pandemic, Quebec's economy was hit with sharp downturns, as I was saying, especially in aerospace and mining, tourism, of course, for all of us. But the negative impact of the economy was negligible in some ways. Quebec is a country top producer of dairy products, hydropower. Their sector is less vulnerable, I will say, to recession than most, to stay one. But I think, and I think this was the president of the Washington Center was mentioning the issue with the workforce with women. I think thanks to some decisions that were made many years ago, the social safety net stayed strong in Quebec. To name just one of the family policy we have in Quebec does minimize the impact of the pandemic on women. Quebec's strong child care policy and family plan provide paid leave, have available to higher retention return rate of women in the workforce during the pandemic. Quebec policy, family policy begins with up to 55 weeks of paid leave for parents who they have adopted a child or have watched a child, as well as really allowance in nearly $500 to about, I would say, 1,900 American dollars that family receive per kids under the age of 18. Prior to the pandemic, gender employment gap in the Quebec side, it's only 2.6 percentage points. So 86% of father took advantage as well of Quebec's parental leave, increasing share, parentship, and parenting among heterosexual and homosexual groups. So studies have found that the introduction of leave for a father in Quebec had long-run positive effect, on the distribution of childcare and domestic work responsibilities. So we are very glad of like this like diverse economy, but also the family policies that will, I think, like shape like the workforce. The other thing I think is important, and we mentioned it, Gladys like mentioned it before, it's the knowledge economy. A large portion of Quebec's population, more than 1.1 million Quebecers, work in science and technology. And for the past decades, Quebec has been outspending most jurisdiction at home, abroad in R&D as a percent of GDP. Premier Legault's government has confronted the labor shortage problem more vigorously than most as well. That's recently committed about $3 billion over 5 years to pay the recruitment of training of many of like 160,000 workers in the section with high job vacancies. Students planning a career in education, healthcare, daycare, engineering, and information technology and other essential sectors are now eligible to incentive scholarship that can amount about as much as $20,000 over 4 years. So I think this kind of measures and like developing the knowledge economy is super important. That top like with migration as my third point, and a reversal of out migration that has long characterized Quebec. Net inflows of population relocating from Ontario to Quebec reached a record high last year. An attraction of interprovincial immigration, Quebec a lower housing price, the high Quebec job vacancy rate of 73% compared to Ontario at 5.6. So Quebec has almost become a magnet for French nationals, but also like from people from all around the world right now in terms of possibilities. That long-term phenomenon has spiked in the recent year with an estimate of 150,000 French national young urban professionals mostly now living in Quebec. It maintains this kind of pace, and we created an immigration policy that tried to match as possible immigration with the need of the workforce at the same time. And the third one, and we'll be brief on that one, is the abundance of capital. Quebec believes is the national business champion right now in the finance and ambition with an unmatched array of deep pocket founders. So this is a great moment right now. It's not only like the traditional case, the dépôt and déplacement ou Invest Quebec, or the labor-backed fund, the Solidarité FTQ right now. And I will match like this like landscape with like 4 key sectors where we try to launch back our economy, and I'll take advantage of this momentum that, and I think it's linked in some ways on something that is a kind of thread that was like there before the pandemic, but that become like more obvious in the last 2 years. The first one is the green trade and the green economy, and the other one is the way we are like addressing like reshoring or friendshoring right now. There's the supply chain. And the energy, Quebec is the first sector. Quebec has been a source of clean, reliable, and competitive price electricity to the United States since 1983. We made the choice of hydropower right now. I think there's a lot of potential there. Quebec is well placed also to become the green battery, I would say, of the Northeastern America. And there's a lot of potential there. Electrification is the second sector that we're looking a lot at. Quebec government will invest around $6.7 billion in key actions to decarbonize the economy and adapt to climate change. The plan will drive a boost of Quebec contribution to global efforts. And there's also like a green economic plan with try to develop like the green economy. Quebec boasts the second highest per capita EV sales in North America, trailing just behind California. Quebec leads the Canadian EV sales. Almost half of the electric vehicles found on Canada roads are in Quebec, in fact. And it's linked also to the choices that we made with energy. The third sector thing that we look a lot is the green resources. The government goals is for Quebec to become the leader in the production, transformation, and recycling of critical and strategic mineral, while working in partnership with local and indigenous community. Quebec is renowned for its longstanding expertise in development of lithium-ion battery, and you hear probably a lot about it right now on this side of the border. That up with the exploitation of aluminum as well, with 9 smelter supplying 60% of the aluminum production in North America. So everything related to green resources as we're doing like this like green transition, when we're going to need those like critical minerals. That's so important. The fourth sector I will mention is the aerospace. Quebec is home already of more than 200 aerospace companies, including industry leaders like Bombardier, Bell, Helicopter, CAE, Pratt & Whitney, Canada. So Quebec is responsible for 53% of the Canadian aerospace production. In fact, Montreal is the third largest hub in aerospace in the world. In 2018, more than 70% of Canadian aerospace research and development was done in the greater Montreal area. And there's 7 universities in Quebec who have aerospace program. So I think that is like, 4 areas to look forward, like, and I will just summarize it. The green economy. I can't emphasize enough how lucky we have to the system we have in Quebec in terms of formation, also in student mobility. The pandemic showed the value of community college and trade programs. In Quebec, our education system includes 2 years of community college after high school before one can even go to university, which then is also 3 years. This college, or CEGEP, as we call them, accept international students too, and some teach English as well. If you're a Quebecois citizen of France, there's a tuition fee that is a little bit different, but there's a pretty good like tuition free for an international student, which is like around $4,500 a semester. So we are so proud of that. And also the partnership that we have with American universities in terms of internship and the presence of international students in Quebec. The presence of international students in Quebec helps support the economy development. And creates more than 27,000 jobs like in the province. We have agreements with more than 40 foreign governments to make sure that we have access to international possibilities, excellent scholarship as well at the university level can also be offered in national and partner countries. The annual funding costs, which is more than $2.7 million. So there's great opportunities. We have internship with organization here in Washington, with the Organization of American States, with Pan American Health Organization. We have this partnership also with the Wilson Center, the Washington Center, like we're very proud of. And thank you to the Washington Center to host us today. And I think like there's a lot of option. And I would just close on that. I think there's like a lot of potential. I want to, as borders are reopening, I think it's time to take advantage of international agreements that we have, especially the one that we have between Canada, US, and Mexico. If you are eligible to dual citizenship, claim it and use it to your advantage. Call your immigrant grandparent and see if you can indeed qualify for EU citizenship in some ways. Many countries offer working holiday visa for young professionals. Countries like Canada, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, most of the European Union member states, and the UK. So use labor mobility provision in trade agreement to your advantage. For example, NAFTA or USMCA, Chapter 16 provides a ease work permit regime to allow certain American, Mexican, and Canadian professionals to work in any of the 3 USMCA countries. Under the Chapter 16, the work in Canada, if you are an accountant, an economist, an engineer, an architect, a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, a chemist, there's 63 categories I think that are recognized in the treaty. So you have an American or Mexican citizenship, all you need is a job offer and you can a work permit will be processed without any additional hurdles. So I think it's a great opportunity right now. In a nutshell, I will say that I'm very optimistic for the future of work. There's a lot of options as the border is reopening, and we're looking forward so much to re-engage with our international partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Francois. Very excellent presentation. I want to just make one quick point. Something we forget about, and I'm going to put my Canada hat on for a moment, is the importance of the social safety net. And one of the things that we've learned through observation is that some governments, especially the government of Quebec, which has shown amazing leadership here, is the unevenness of the response of governments. And another thing I want to salute my colleagues and my colleagues in Quebec is the P3s, the public-private partnerships. They are absolutely essential. And one of the things we've discovered here is that if you have a strong linkages, strong relationships between government and the private sector, and you have a robust social safety net, that you can weather these adversities and come out actually in better shape than when you went in. So thank you, my friend. That's excellent presentation. And now I'd like to bring Alonso in for his presentation.
Thank you, Peter. I think this will be a great session, because all the things that the panelists shared with the audience is very important for understand the situation that we have now and the future that is very close to all of us, and the actions that we have to take in order to adapt and I think reduce the negative impact of this change, and of course try to take advantage of the opportunities to emerge as a result of this change. As several of our panelists has said, I think there are a lot of change or challenge in the world now. I think the transition to the digitalization and the digital economy is one of them, and of course the impact that this process has in the work, in the future of the work and the market of skills in the work is very important, and especially who is related with the educational process, with a public policy formulating is very important to understand the challenge that we are facing now, and the need of take immediate measures for take the change that we need to implement in a very short term. I want to share two slides to support my participation. Let me. Okay. Yeah. Well, one of the main challenges that I said is the adapt to our economy, our society for this important change. Probably the change more important in this sector since the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century. And I think it's important to be aware of the transcendence of this change, because probably we need a new arrangement, a social and economic arrangement, a new deal between the different actors of the economy, with the participation of government, companies, people. But meanwhile, we need to implement some public policies and some actions to try to adapt this change that are demanding a new set of skills. I said before in the introduction of the panel. I have a graphic here very similar to the Gladys presented in her participation, and I want to notice the change that presented in the top 10 skills identified for World Economic Forum, considering the top skills needed in 2015 and the top 10 skills needed in 2020. Actually, there are perspective to 2025, and I think we'll be aware from the important change that represent in a very short of time the skills that the companies, that the institutions are needed for the people. We have to identify that there are transition, important and fast transition to more soft skills. I'm agreed that is not probably the best term for these skills, but well, we have to use in order to identify or difference from the hard skills or more structured and concrete skills. We need more abstract skills. I think is the skills that probably we define more as human beings and human and creatives, and with the capacity to create solutions in more abstract and more not than structured way. And we have to see the fast change, and the process of change is more than hard to soft skills. And I think it's interesting, this information, because it's before the pandemic. But considering that the pandemic starts in 2020, this process, as several of you said before, is accelerating this transition in a very, very fast way. We have to take the actions in a more opportunity way, no? With more precision and with faster results that we need to take. I think the future of work is probably one of the most important challenge that we face, as I said before, but I don't see a lot of concern in many of the actors of our economy. In Hidalgo State, we are trying to impulse a transition of our social and economic model to link with knowledge as a central factor for impulse our development. And in this process, the talent is a very important piece in this process. For that reason, we are working in different programs, as in Initiative Hidalgo is one of them. We are impulsing a public policy for create an innovation ecosystem that use specific emergent technologies that they require a new profile of professional, of young people. And for that reason, we are looking for work with institutions to are really now be successful in this process. And for that reason, we are very glad to work with Washington Center and all the team of this institution, because we see that the important impact in the life and the profile of the participants in the issues of years before. And for that reason, I really want to impulse this process in Hidalgo with the intention to reach better results in all the sectors, in all the regions in our state, and boost this transition based in talent, in our talent. That this is one of our advantage in this era for our region, and the transition that we are living is supported in our talent and in our partners as Washington Center. For that reason, I want to thanks again to all the panelists and all the team of Washington Center for create this partnership and this panel. I think that the first thing that we have to do is be aware of the changes, of the opportunities, of the risks, and the second is take action with this intelligence. And I think we are taking action with this initiative in Hidalgo. And thank you very much for all.
Thank you, Alonso. It was a great presentation. One quick comment. I think one of the things that you said that I was fascinated by when you're talking about the fourth wave of innovation and the skills that are necessary here, the one of cognitive flexibility and emotional intelligence. I would add one other one, which I think, you know, having been engaged in this process for almost 30 years now, is empathy, the concept of empathy, because that's what drives the human connection. And we have some, you know, I mean, I'm not going to minimize it. We have huge challenges ahead of us, huge. I mean, not even counting this horrific war that we're involved in right now, or somehow involved in, is that in order to prevent these sorts of disasters from happening in the future, the next generation of professionals needs to be equipped with this emotional intelligence that allows them to empathize and connect with other people, so that we can be more efficient and be more diverse and capture the tremendous human capital that sometimes is you know, on the sidelines through no one's fault. So thank you for that. It was a brilliant presentation, very, very much. Fede, I think, are we going to open it up to Q&A now, or? Okay, let's see.
Yes, the chat box is open. So if you would like to type in your question, I think all the panelists and all the participants can see the questions. The panelists can choose to answer live or to type the answer as you wish. We have a few more minutes because I know our panelists are very busy and they will have to go very soon to different engagements. So, I mean, the chat is open, and Peter, if you want to take a look at that, and then just, you know, if any of the panelists would like to answer that.
Right, and Gladys, you've got a Q&A from.
Yes, I'm seeing I have a Q&A. Thank Gabriel for your question. I think it's a very good question. I don't know why we have this notion that 50-year-old is old. Okay, let me start with that.
Try 66.
Especially for women. You know, you're experienced, and that experience has value. You know, I have a 7-year-old son in 2nd grade and did 2 years of virtual schooling. I think I deserve credit for that as well. I mean, I think that somehow we need to stop, and I know in Latin America it's even harder, but I think we need to stop thinking that just because we've reached a certain age, we can't learn anymore. And I think that to answer your question, I think that the advice is, I think together we need to start changing that culture. And somehow now with technology, there's also an opportunity to reskilling and upskilling and changing skills and having those transferable skills that transfer from one industry to the other. And we saw that here in Panama when the pandemic hit Copa Airlines. It was literally from one day to the other. All these pilots were stranded. You know, we were like, okay, what can we do to better their certain other skills that they maybe could use in the maritime industry that never stopped, right? So I think that it's a matter of having the will and having the humility, also being humble about learning, and you realize the people that know the most, and I've worked a lot with top scientists, and you realize that they're very humble, because the more you know you don't know. So so I think, and this pandemic has taught us that as well, you know. So I think we're in a process where we need to keep, you know, if you don't have the English skills, hey, you know, there's Duolingo, there's so many other options there. We have free all the courses that we offered are for free. So there's no excuse to not keep learning, even on your phone while you wait in traffic. I mean, just keep putting skill sets in that little bag.
Agreed. Very well said. Thank you. I think we've got that for questions. So Fede, if you want to go and do the closing comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 5 more minutes, so we will try to close at 12:15 Eastern time. So we have 7 more minutes if everybody in the panel is okay with that.
Yes, Fede, we have a couple questions in the Q&A portal I'm seeing here too, and one of them is from Antonio that says, based on the current global scenario, what would you say that is the biggest challenge educational centers have? And I would put that as K-12, technical colleges, community, like 2-year degrees, 1-year degrees, and traditional colleges, universities. My quick hot take on that is that most of education is based on hundreds and hundreds of year old business model, and creating flexible pathways has not been the nomenclature of education. And so I think to be able to reach the new demography, it is about creating different pathways that we will not be able to just have a standard, you must sign up for 15 credit hours this semester and complete it from September 1 to December 10. If we're going to reach people where they are, that are working, that might be caregivers as well, we're going to have to create portable, accessible, asynchronous and synchronous opportunities that are remote, hybrid, et cetera, and create much stronger professional and personal networking sessions. And I think this is a big aha moment time for education too, to be able to deliver on that promise.
Okay, we have another question from Gabriel, and they're asking, my question is based on what were the main focus of courses for the development of entrepreneurship in developing countries, specifically Mexico? So if anybody, Alonso, do you want to jump on that question? How to develop entrepreneurship?
It's a hard thing. We are trying to impulse the entrepreneurship in the last year. We have a program for impulse specific scientific and technological entrepreneurship is, innovative startups, companies, and we have a lot of good results, but it's part of a process. We need to create the skills again in our young people, because we need more capacity for innovate, create, take risks, and communicate the things that they are doing. For that reason, I think it's a similar problem or the same big theme when we talk about the future of work or entrepreneurship. Is the same needs that we have to develop in young people. For that reason, the initiative Hidalgo with Washington Center are focused in impulse, entrepreneurship, and innovation, because we believe that are an important opportunity to boost our economy, giving the conditions to the talent, develop their startups, develop their projects, and impact in a positive way our economy and our society. The first thing is create skills, capacities in the people. The second thing is create an ecosystem that there are the different roles in this ecosystem, companies, entrepreneurships, finance opportunities, link with the academic sector, and of course, public policies and programs to support this process. It's a complex process, but I think in Mexico are happening. Unfortunately, in the federal government is not a priority now in this administration, but in Hidalgo state is an important program, and there are a lot of good results, but of course it's not enough yet. We need to work harder because there are a lot of talent, and if we have the opportunity to impulse their projects, the economic impact probably will be very, very important for the regions, because one of the entrepreneurship component is a regional impact. Is not only in the national or the state level, is focused in some regions, and the entrepreneurship is a way to impulse the development of regions that in many cases there are not other opportunities in the overview of their development. Thank you.
Gladys, there's a question here for you. Which scholarship options does Education USA have for undergraduate or graduate students?
Well, I think that's a good point. Education USA doesn't necessarily have scholarships. We promote existing scholarships. So that's something I want to clarify. So, but we help you to apply to those existing scholarships by helping you with the essays and helping you with the application process. Education USA does have an opportunity scholarships, but we still don't have it in Panama. So I'm working on that. But Mexico has it. So if you're in Mexico, contact your Education USA representative close to you because they do have those opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's it for questions so far. Let me just see.
I think so, Peter. I think that, if anybody has any other question, I just left my email on the chat box. So please send me an email, send me a WhatsApp, whatever you feel more comfortable. WhatsApp is used everywhere except in the US. So you know that, we run the world on WhatsApp. We're trying to also do it on email. So you have all my contact information. And I would like to very much thank our formidable panelists. I mean, our new president, Kimberly Churches. I'm very proud of the work and the place where she's taking the Washington Center. I'm very proud of the direction we're taking and we're going in terms of the new future programs, the innovation, and all the things that we are going to be doing in the future. So please stay tuned for that. Also, thank you to Alonso Huerta for sponsoring this initiative with Hidalgo, our long-term partners, Gladys, Jean-Francois, merci à vous, c'était un plaisir. So we hope to be back in Quebec and Panama very soon. Peter, thank you very much as always. So I hope this is the first of many other exercises that we do in the future. So thank you all and have a good day.
Gracias todos.
Gracias.
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 Bye.
Bye.
Muchas gracias.